BBC World Service, I'm Lise Doucette, and this is A Wish for Afghanistan. How did we get here? What happens next? I'm still in Kabul. NATO forces are gone, Taliban in charge. There's a swirl of uncertainty here, and a politician of the past has found new purpose. Mr. President!
Hello.
How are you doing?
So good
to see you.
All well.
Hamid Karzai, former president, in power for 13 of the last 20 years. He's a leader you may recognise. He's known for his natty cloaks and caps. On August 15th, the day the Taliban swept into Kabul, the last president, Ashraf Ghani, headed for the airport. But not Hamid Karzai. He stayed put, doing what he does best, talking. Every time I drop by his walled compound in Kabul, there's a big circle of visitors, sitting under the fruit trees or in his elegant drawing room. These days, that includes the Taliban. I've been to see him more than once for this programme, including this month. So what do the Taliban want from him?
They have come and discussed this with us on how to return calm to the country, how to return calm to the people, and how to regenerate economic activity in Afghanistan so the country returns to confidence and a sense of normalcy is there, and the people are reassured. So far, our meetings with the leadership of the Taliban movement have been fruitful.
But Afghans seem to have lost hope.
It is a difficult moment for all of us, but we should not lose hope. All Afghans must join hands to make it better. That means the Taliban movement and all other Afghans in brotherhood, in sisterhood, and nationhood.
But there's only Taliban in the Taliban's new caretaker cabinet. What's his leverage now? 3 decades ago, they were all part of the Afghan Mujahideen, all fighting the Soviet occupation.
The Afghan Mujahideen do not wish to cause civilian casualties, and for this reason, we might hold back and seek other means of increasing the possibility of a quick fall of the Kabul regime.
That's Hamid Karzai in the late 80s, a young spokesman for one of the armed groups. I've known him since that time. He was a dapper dresser even then, smart blazers, traditional tunics. But Hamid Karzai is a son of the soil. His father, Abdulahad, headed a Pashtun tribe, the Popalzai, in southern Afghanistan. When he was assassinated, some say by the Taliban, tribesmen placed a turban on Hamid's head, a sign he was the rightful heir.
Hello, Hamid?
Another moment of destiny. Less than 3 months after the US-led invasion in 2001, I made a call with news that changed his life forever. December the 7th.
Yes.
I was in Kabul, and I heard on BBC television that the International Conference on Afghanistan, hosted by the United Nations, had chosen you to be the leader.
Yes. The phone rang. And I answered, it was you. And I was surprised. I had no idea at all.
Can we have your reaction to the news that you are the new chairman of the Interim Council?
I have not yet been informed by my Afghan colleagues or by the United Nations.
You said to me, are you sure?
Yes,
you were excited, but you were nervous. You said, are you sure?
I had no idea.
But if it is true, then I'm glad that they have trusted me and they've considered me worthy for this job. And
I had no idea that at that very moment, Hamid Karzai was injured. His American allies had, by accident, dropped a bomb all too close to him.
This whole room blew out. So I was bleeding, and pieces of broken wood and all that had gone into my face and forehead. Then phone calls came. World leaders began to call, and they couldn't imagine that I was a wounded person sitting there in a room that had no windows in that village, and they were congratulating this man.
This man, a survivor of several near misses over the years, emerged as the best possible pick at this turning point in history. Let me tell you what people said at the time, what journalists like me said at the time. You were a member of the Mujahideen who fought against the Soviets, but you weren't a warlord. You were a Pashtun tribal chief, but you weren't a nationalist. You were fluent in English and in the ways of the West, but you were rooted in Afghanistan.
The countryside, yes.
In other words, you were good enough. You ticked all the boxes.
Yes, we had roots in the countryside. Yes, we participated in the Afghan resistance fully. We did not leave the country. We stayed. And yes, I was educated.
I remember conversations in the late 1980s when I met you in Pakistan. And you would say to me, I'm torn. I traveled to the West. I was educated in India. But I'm my father's son. And so I will have responsibilities that my life has been set for me.
Exactly.
And you felt torn.
Yes. I had been to the United States. I had known the world. And yet I was deeply, deeply an Afghan and committed to my country. I wanted a Western type of life. Good roads, good economy, good society, well off. But I wanted all of that in Afghanistan. That was the difference. The life that I aspired to was for me available only in Afghanistan.
Heady days. But after 20 years of war, Afghanistan was in ruins. You finally made it to Kabul, December the 13th. It was a cold winter's day.
Very much, yes.
And there was no electricity. There were no telephones.
Nothing here.
And so by word of mouth in the market, the whispers went round.
Yes.
Karzai is coming.
Yes.
The new leader.
Yes.
It was so dark. It was so cold. What did you feel? Was this a moment of hope, excitement, dread?
Oh, massive. Oh, massive. And the enthusiasm of the Afghan people and the way people came from all over the country and wanted the country to be built. And slowly, slowly, from having no phones, no electricity, no staff, no typewriters, nothing.
I remember those rooms because with the Taliban, when they were in there, was the king's quarters. They actually painted over the eyes of the birds and put trousers on the animals' legs because they said it was haram, un-Islamic.
We cleaned it and restored it, and the birds whose heads were broken, all that was there. We began to rebuild.
And you set out, your first day in Kabul, what you wanted to achieve.
Yes.
Do you remember what you said?
I said I want a peaceful Afghanistan, a united Afghanistan, a country that belongs to all Afghans. And we want to make progress and be great friends with the West, with the Americans.
Yes, you used the expression, good will come, you said. If foreign troops were able to help Afghans build their own security forces, you were so emphatic that Afghanistan, after years of factional fighting, needed a national army.
A national army. Oh, that was a great priority of mine. And I'm glad I worked on it and built it.
It's painful to hear that now, that powerful sense of possibility. But from the start, danger was always just around the corner. You had many enemies, and they tried to kill you. And the closest call was September 2002. I was with you in Kandahar.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, someone in a military uniform had a gun and attacked us in our vehicle.
We were traveling in the president's heavily protected convoy as we came out of the governor's residence. And now he was coming into the main square where thousands of people had gathered to greet him. And moments later, an Afghan man in uniform came forward and fired 4 rounds into the president's car.
You had rolled down the window because a young boy wanted to talk to you, and then another boy leapt forward and opened fire.
And that young boy stopped him. The young boy was shot, unfortunately.
But there you were in Kandahar,
Yes.
which you regarded as your home,
Yes.
among the people you regarded as your
Yes.
people,
Yes.
and someone wanted to kill you.
Of course, I was the president. And there were some people who did not want Afghanistan to prosper or to be democratic or to be free.
There was panic in Western capitals. Their whole new strategy for Afghanistan rested on you, one man, and you were almost killed.
Yes.
What did they say when they called you? The calls were coming in fast to the compound as we waited to be taken back to Kabul.
Yes, yes. But I said, I'm fine, relax.
That's what he was like on that day. How do you feel now? A bit shaken?
No, I'm fine. I expect things like that to come across the way.
محترم حامد کرزی
In 2004, Afghans chose their president through votes, not violence. It was such a hopeful moment. Millions ticked their ballots for Hamid Karzai. It was an historic day,
Absolutely.
emotional day.
Tremendously. Tremendously. What a good moment. I felt so empowered as a citizen of Afghanistan, going there and casting my vote.
Afghans cried.
A lot did. Tremendous.
Did you?
I was very emotional. Very, very emotional.
The music soon died. Taliban fighters were inching back into Afghanistan from sanctuaries in Pakistan, just across the border. And President Karzai's relationship with his American friends was fraying. Their ferocious firepower was targeting the Taliban, but they were killing civilians too.
Laid out in a local mosque, the bodies of more than 40 civilians, most of them children.
Azizabad, a village in western Afghanistan, August 2008.
Babies and toddlers crushed to death under collapsed buildings. A little girl with massive head injuries.
That was the moment that I decided that they had to be confronted very, very strongly. From that moment, I had a monumental change in me and in my attitude towards the United States military and their behavior.
You say you confronted them.
Well, I said all that I could have said. That they were behaving like an invasion, that they were violating the rights of the Afghan people, that they were not fighting terrorism, but that they were trying to destroy our country, and that they should stop. I even told them that they better leave.
And that made your allies, putting the lives of their men and women on the line, spending huge sums of money, angry at you.
Very angry. And then they began to attack me in the media, to say all sorts of things against me and about me. But I was ready for it. I had made my decision.
But they said, well, why doesn't President Karzai criticize the Taliban? Because the UN figures show that most of the civilian casualties were at the hands of the Taliban attacks, which were increasing. Why not criticize the Taliban?
The Taliban were fighting us, but the Americans were bombing the Afghan people, bombing our villages, bombing our children and women. There's a difference between a terrorist with a gun and the child of a family. That was not acceptable.
Tough words, but tough talk from the Americans too, especially about corruption. Huge sums of money seemed to be going missing, and fingers of blame were even pointed at the president's brothers. Some American politicians were fed up. – 2008, February. Then Senator Joe Biden visits. You host him for dinner. It went badly wrong
Yes,
when corruption came up.
yes.
What happened?
I raised civilian casualties They raised corruption, and they wanted a deal from me. They said, you stop talking about civilian casualties, we will stop talking about corruption. You stop talking about American dealings with Pakistan, they will stop talking about corruption. I said, I will not. Stop killing the Afghan people, I told them, and stop double dealings with Pakistan.
Pakistan, the issue that won't go away. President Karzai and others kept insisting Islamabad was the source of the real problem, a safe haven for the Taliban. Pakistan always denied it. That was your constant refrain, that you want to fight terrorism.
Exactly.
The root is in Pakistan.
Exactly.
Sanctuaries of the Taliban are there.
Exactly.
But you also said, when they challenged you on corruption, your family's corruption, corruption of your ministers, you said there's no corruption.
No, I said there is corruption, the petty corruption.
Small corruption.
Small corruption. But the big corruption is the direct working of the United States and the contracts that they give. Stop that, I said.
And what did Joe Biden do?
He got up and he got angry and threw the serviette and left.
He got up and he threw his napkin down and he said, this dinner is over. And he marched out.
He said, Pakistan is 50 times more important than Afghanistan is for the US. 50 times, 50 times.
The way that was reported was that you sat there in stunned silence.
Yeah, I just looked at him. I said, all right, if that's the case, okay.
It wasn't okay. President Karzai's relations with his most important ally kept unraveling. By 2009, you were described as exhausted, erratic.
Yes.
They called you paranoid.
They called me paranoid, they called me exhausted, they labeled me all sorts of things. They wanted to break me psychologically.
But did you ever sit and think that maybe they had a point, maybe you had to get better at being president, more decisive?
I was a decisive president.
Mr. President, sometimes people said you said one thing in the morning and another thing in the evening.
No, I was a decisive president. That's exactly what they didn't want. They didn't want a decisive president. They wanted someone that they could persuade and sway. And I wasn't that.
In 2009, Afghans gave their president another vote of confidence, another term in office, another cause for celebration.
We once again proved as a nation that we can do it, and we did it.
But you must be worried in the south, sir. Some polling stations didn't open at all because of security or because people didn't show up.
It went very, very well.
Well, not in the eyes of election observers. Everyone was talking about allegations and evidence of fraud. To this day, Hamid Karzai blames the Americans for destroying democracy.
Look, there could be a lot of fraud. There could be a lot of
There
things
was
happening
a lot
in
of fraud.
any
There
election.
was.
But the principal fraud was committed by the United States. They spawned the elections. They wanted me to be in no position to resist them. And he said, well, this has to go to the second round. Even before the results are declared, this election is fraudulent. It must go to a second round. And I said, no way.
It was said for a long time that what happened in the 2009 elections was this festering wound that you just wouldn't let it go. It weighed on you.
It is a festering wound for the Afghan
For you.
democracy.
For you.
As the president of the country, yes. Why would a country that claims democracy come and undermine democracy?
Well, they felt you weren't doing a good job.
They knew I was doing a good job in defending our country. They wanted me silent, and I wouldn't stay silent.
His job was finally done in 2014. A new president, Ashraf Ghani, was sworn in, but only after a huge crisis over the vote count. The US had to step in to sort it. Still, this first ever peaceful transfer of power was a milestone. But all the while, the Taliban kept gaining ground. Which brings me back to that big what if. If you listened to the first program, and I hope you did, you'll have heard Washington's envoy, Zalmay Khalilzad, talking about a letter, in effect, an offer of surrender, handed to Hamid Karzai by the Taliban in late 2001. They were on the run then, a broken force.
10-15 of them came and they brought me a letter saying that we accept the legitimacy of your government and we transfer power to you.
But you never responded to that letter. It was a letter of surrender, that they were ready to give up their weapons, hand them over to you, because their Islamic Emirate was finished.
Yes.
But you never accepted it.
No, I accepted it. I accepted the letter. Naive as I was, I gave it back to them to say, well, thank you for this letter of transferring power to my government. Now take this and announce it on the radios tonight.
Samia Khalil Saad was very angry. He said to us, why didn't Hamid Karzai tell me about that letter? He said I was having dinner with him every night. He thought it was an opportunity.
Well, it was, and the transfer of power took place.
But why didn't you publicly say, as the new interim leader, I accept this letter, you can live in peace here?
Well, we had no opportunity then. There was no media. There was no media. But I did say that...
You could have called me. You often called me. I would have broadcast it.
No, but I did say that the country now belonged to all Afghans and all Afghans should live peacefully. And they did go and begin living peacefully in their country.
Do you think the Americans put pressure on you?
No, nobody put pressure on me, but that opportunity was lost because of night raids and all those other things. I'm busy.
Okay. And I hope...
I'm going to allow BBC to spoil things.
End of conversation. Well, not quite. Not long after, as we sat outside under the fruit trees, he decided he did want to say something, to make it crystal clear that for all his criticism of the US, he sees the Americans as a great people, their country a crucial ally. So many what-ifs. Could it have turned out differently? Well, in 2001, after the terrible attacks of September 11th, the US had one goal: crush al-Qaeda, conquer the Taliban. In the end, they failed. 20 years after the Taliban were ousted from power, they now say that they've won.
Nobody has won. The Afghans have lost. A Talib young man dying is an Afghan army soldiers dying is an Afghan woman, child dying, getting hurt in bombs is an Afghan loss. No one has won. The Taliban have not won. We have not won. Both have lost.
What would you say about the Taliban now? Throughout your time in office, you called them brothers.
Yes.
Now Afghans are fearing their return. Mm-hmm. They say they haven't changed from the days where they didn't let girls go to school, where they were banning women from leaving the houses.
That was wrong.
That they were executing women in stadiums. Mm-hmm. They say they haven't changed.
That was wrong. That was wrong. I still call them brother because they're from this country. They belong to this country. They're from this soil. And brothers must live together, and we should live together.
Your daughter's here. Salam. Not to hear a former president. A daughter wants to hug her doting father. What's your name? Which one's this?
This was Nazar. She's 7.
7. Your children. A man who likes to see himself as a father of the nation has his own kids to care for now. Is it still a country where you can bring up your daughters and your son?
My daughters and son is here. We want to stay in Afghanistan. This is our country. I don't want to be a refugee anywhere in the world. I want to live in a peaceful Afghanistan. And I want my children to get educated here. Yes.
But look at the rules emerging, that men and women cannot study together. Women have to wear black clothing, which doesn't seem to be part of the traditions of Afghanistan.
Yes.
Is that where you want your daughters to study?
I want my daughters to study in Afghanistan, and I have been emphasizing in great clarity that without a properly educated Afghanistan, which means equally women and girls in Afghanistan, Afghanistan will not see a happy day. Afghanistan will not progress. I want my daughters, all the Afghan girls, to get the best of education. Doctors, engineers, economists, journalists, in the parliament, they must be fully part of the Afghan growth. And that cannot be without proper education. It's a God-given right, and we will not give up on it.
20 years ago, when you became leader, your main priority, you told me, was peace and security, total peace and security.
Yes.
Afghans are now living with what is possibly the worst chapter of the 40-year war.
Very sad.
Do you blame yourself? Are you part of this failure? What did you do wrong?
I did my best. No, on the contrary, I'm very proud of what I did. I told the Afghan people what was wrong and what we should do. And I told the Americans what was wrong and what they should not do. And we did what we could for the country and delivered an election and the next president. But we still have a responsibility to prevent the worst in Afghanistan. And it is for us, the Afghan people, to do, not for any foreign power.
Next week on A Wish for Afghanistan, Fatima Gailani, former spokeswoman for the Mujahideen who fought against the Soviet occupiers in the 80s. Now she's talking tough with the Americans.
Don't come now and think that I'm a stupid Afghan and will believe whatever you tell me. No, we were together in this thing. You owe it to me. You owe it to my country. You owe it to fix back my country.